This channel is a monument to bad taste. If you've been subscribed to me from the beginning, you already know my style. Take something tasteless, and maybe even a little trashy, and then flip the script to show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. I've wanted to cover anime for a while now, but it's always been a question of finding the right topic and a compelling angle. I've loved anime my entire life, and I believe that just like video games, animation can express ideas to the audience in ways that no other medium can. Well, get ready, because this is the big one. A deep dive critical video essay about the holy grail of trashy yet profound anime. We're going to explore a show that's amazingly rich with thematic meanings, clever symbolism, and a deeper, hidden message. This is a story about sex, violence, religion, fascism, freedom, and the burning desire inside all of us for genuine self-expression and self-realization. And this story, about the dark and intoxicating thrill of despotism, has never been more relevant and necessary than in this current moment. Because hidden within the narrative and themes of this anime is a vital message about how we can fight for the future. The thrill of bodies on the march, acting in uniform, dressed in uniform, with a uniform ideology and purpose, and all of it organized around the central cult of personality of the strong leader. This is fascism. We're going to be discussing this concept a lot throughout this video essay, so we should start by defining terms. Fascism is a highly fraught topic, and there's plenty of contradictory ideas about what qualifies as a fascist society. Umberto Eco's essay on fascism, or eternal fascism, is a good starting point for this conversation, and I'm going to be leaning heavily on his definitions. There's a link down below to download a full PDF version, and I encourage you to read it. Angie Speaks also did a great primer on this essay on her channel. Check it out. In the most general terms, fascism is a system of government where an autocratic authority, often in close cooperation with big business or a state-sanctioned religion, exercises dictatorial control over the population. The fascist citizen lives in a state of permanent warfare and perpetual disinformation. Minorities of every kind are marginalized, and individual and societal needs are subordinated in favor of a mythical and monolithic common will of the people.
To you, the great silent majority of my fellow Americans, I ask for your support. For the more divided we are at home, the less likely the enemy is to negotiate at Paris.
Kill La Kill is a parable about authoritarianism, its history, its power, and how we are all still bound up in its spell to this very day. But it's understandable if you didn't notice any of this stuff the first time around, because the show also puts a lot of emphasis on other things. So yes, let's get this out of the way. Kill La Kill is semi-pornographic, hypersexualized, and outrageously violent. If naked bodies, sex, and stylized violence are deal breakers for you, then you're just not going to have a good time with this show. There's no way around it. But if you're willing to meet Kill La Kill on its own terms and engage seriously with the concepts it's presenting, you'll gain a new appreciation for one of the most important works of fiction of the last decade. Kill La Kill aired on Japanese TV in 2013 and 2014. The series was written, designed, and animated by Studio Trigger, a spin-off of the legendary animation studio Gainax. The Gainax team was responsible for some of the most critically beloved anime of all time, like Neon Genesis Evangelion, Furikuri, and Gurren Lagann. But in 2011, many of the top creators and animators behind these shows quit Gainax to create their own company, Studio Trigger. This was when Gurren Lagann writer Hiroyuki Imaishi and director Kazuki Nakashima had an idea for an entirely new take on the shonen action format. They took the central theme of Gurren Lagann, a man's growth and maturation, as Imaishi put it, flipped the genders, and switched up the setting to a modern-day Japanese high school. Their plan was to take the best elements and themes of the shonen action genre and use them to tell a story about a young woman finding her way in an oppressive world. And what we got was Kill la Kill.
Don't lose your way, your mind.
It's a heartfelt and wickedly satirical coming-of-age story. The animation is fantastic, despite the shoestring budget. The soundtrack by Hiroyuki Sawano absolutely whips ass. And its message changed my life. But before we even get started with a synopsis, the first thing you'll need to understand is that Kill la Kill loves a good reference. The show borrows extensively from the cinematography, action sequences, and iconography of classic shonen action manga and anime, a genre usually aimed at young boys. But in a somewhat dialectical twist, Kill la Kill also pays loving homage to the iconic tropes and transformation sequences of shoujo, magical girl anime like Sailor Moon and Revolutionary Girl Utena, as well as scenes from classic female-fronted action series like Devil Hunter Yoko. Our story begins as the vagrant teenager Matoi Ryuko arrives at Honnoji Academy, Honno City, a fictional modern Japanese high school in a fictional modern Tokyo. The elite students at Honnoji Academy wear Goku uniforms, which use a special biotechnology called life fibers to grant their wearers superhuman strength.
この特殊繊維が人間の力を強化し、特殊能力を引き出す。
そういえば、あれが生命繊維か。
だが、この世には生命繊維だけで織られた服が存在する。それがカムイだ。
Honnoji Academy styles itself as a meritocracy. Supposedly, anyone can climb to the top of the social ladder with enough determination and hard work. Armed with a scissor-shaped sword that can cut through Goku uniforms and life fibers alike, Ryuko aims to find her father's killer and avenge his death. And so, she goes to war against the leader of Honnoji Academy, Kiryuin Satsuki, and her Shiteno Elite Four student council. Along the way, Ryuko gathers allies from the group Nudist Beach, a ragtag rebellion that seeks to liberate humanity from clothing. So far, so anime. Now, if you've watched my videos before, you know I'm not big on straightforward story synopsis. So rather than just read you the plot section of the Wikipedia page, let's dive right into the analysis. Kill la Kill doesn't waste your time with convoluted symbolism and continental philosophy. From the very first scene of the show, it's letting you know exactly what it's all about.
1933年、国家社会主義ドイツ労働者党は政権を獲得。ヒトラー内閣の誕生だ。ドイツの戦後民主主義が結局ファシズム政権を生んだことになる。
This is a real history lesson about the downfall of Germany's highly advanced and democratic Weimar government and the rise of Nazi barbarism in the 1930s. And then, a jackboot, the universal symbol of the up-jumped fascist, comes crashing through the classroom door to assert itself. As subtle as a smack to the face, right? Right from its opening moments, Kill la Kill is communicating its central theme directly to the viewer. Fascism is here. It's real. And it's going to crush us if we don't fight back. This reading isn't me injecting politics into art where it doesn't belong. This is an analysis of an explicitly political work. Kill la Kill's juxtaposition of authoritarianism with fashion is likewise rooted in real history. In the second episode, the show lays bare how Japan's ubiquitous military-style school uniforms will forever be entwined with their fascist origins.
この国が学生に着せている制服、これは軍服を元にしている。男子の爪襟は陸軍の、女子のセーラー服はその名の通り海兵のものだ。この国は和コードに軍服を着せて教育することを選んだ国家だ。ならば、我々本能寺学園は制服を戦闘服とする。
And much like the show's overt symbolism, there's no hidden or opaque meaning behind the narrative's main themes. As director Imaishi explicitly said in an interview, when it comes to the English words fashion and fascism, the standard Japanese pronunciation of each word sounds almost identical. Fashion and fasho, the fascism of fashion. The Japanese language is famous for its wordplay and lyricism, and there's a cornucopia of additional double entendres and double meanings that form the key themes of Kill la Kill. Seifuku and Seifuku, the sailor uniform of conquest. Kamui and Kamui, the garment of divine rule. And perhaps the most straightforward wordplay of all, Kiru, Ra, Kiru, cut away the clothes on your body. There's even more to unpack here, but rather than focus on every single bit of wordplay or instance of visual homage, let's instead explore how the show's central themes unfold as the narrative progresses. And as we pull apart these red threads, one by one, we just might find the explanation we were looking for, waiting at the end. The very first time we see our protagonist Ryuko, we get a nice little nod to the Gainax anime Furikuri. It's the first of many hints that Kill la Kill is, like its predecessors, a coming-of-age tale, right down to the roots. The first episode of Furikuri ends with the main character Naota taking a sip from a sour lemon drink belonging to his crush Mamimi, and the viewer understands that this is an intimate and romantic act, the equivalent of sharing a kiss. But Naota also hates sour flavors, and the show treats this as a metaphor for his childishness, his refusal to deal with the more challenging aspects of life. Not so when we first meet Kill la Kill protagonist Matoi Ryuko. Ryuko bites the lemon without a moment's hesitation. Here, we get the same indirect sour kiss, but with an ironic reversal.
人の食べかけのレモンを盗むなんて混ぜてるじゃないか。そんなに初恋の味が知りたいのかな?
Unlike the meek and timid Naota, Ryuko is a headstrong girl who is unafraid to confront life's challenges head on. But this isn't just a one-off reference for the superfans. This Bildungsroman-style symbolism can be seen throughout the entire series. As the sinister machinations of the Revox Corporation are slowly uncovered, we see their life fibers assume the form of various articles of clothing. From school uniforms, to formal suits and ties, to an elegant wedding dress. These items are instantly recognizable to us in part because they're all commonly accepted symbols of the transition into adulthood. Wearing a school uniform symbolizes that you're standing at the threshold of maturity, about to begin your journey into adulthood. For men, a suit and tie is one of the main symbolic markers that you've made it as an adult. You wear these clothes because you've got a salaried job and the office dress code requires it. And for women, the wedding dress is similarly a traditional indicator of adulthood and symbol of maturity. And this motif connecting clothing to maturity is where Kill la Kill offers one of its most sublime bits of social commentary. The audience comes to understand that clothes are both a symbolism of tyranny and authoritarianism and one of our most potent weapons in the fight against them. In the decades preceding World War II, Japan abandoned its policies of isolationism, took up a Western-style system of democratic government, and undertook an extensive program of industrial modernization. But these dreams of democracy withered in 1932 with a bloody fascist coup attempt in which rogue elements of the Japanese Navy assassinated Prime Minister Inukai Tsuyoshi. And following a second coup attempt in 1936 by similarly radicalized elements within the Japanese army, the military seized control of the country. The next year, Japan's newly empowered military government signed an anti-communist pact with Fascist Italy and Nazi Germany, giving rise to the Axis powers. 9 long years of bloodshed and conquest would follow, during which time the entirety of Japanese society was militarized. And uniforms were central to the ideology of this new regime. In Italy, Germany, and Japan, young people were forced into uniform and enrolled in youth programs where they were trained to become the fascist foot soldiers of tomorrow. To this day, many Japanese students, male and female, still wear these military-style school uniforms. And once again, Kill la Kill is in no way subtle about this historical illusion.
民衆、愚かなる者たち。彼らは体制に飼いならされた服を着た豚だ。この桐生院皐月と本能寺学園により統治されなければならない。我々こそが人類の未来を切り開く。極征服はそのための武器だ。
Throughout the 20th century, fascism was propelled and sustained by 2 simultaneous forces: the indoctrination of the youth and the mystique of the uniform. Just as Nazi Germany used Hugo Boss's designs to add an aesthetic sheen to their violence, so too did Imperial Japan use uniforms to lend legitimacy to their movement. And these currents are not confined to the distant past. They have begun to emerge once again. Today, the Japanese government under Shinzo Abe is pursuing the revocation of Article 9, a central pillar of its pacifistic post-World War II constitution. With the end of Article 9, there will be no more checks on Japan's ability to maintain a standing army and militarize its society once more. This move is massively unpopular domestically because of the bitter historical lesson that the Japanese understand all too well. The ideology of permanent warfare demands subservience to an equally brutal tradition: the sacrifice of the blood of the young. The kamui that Ryuko and Satsuki wear are sewn out of life fibers, a mystical red thread with superhuman powers. In East Asian mythology, these red threads are a tool of the matchmaker god, who uses the red thread of fate to bind individuals together by their pinky fingers. Once you are connected to someone by the red thread of fate, you are destined to cross paths with them. As lovers, perhaps, or as rivals, or in some other way that fundamentally changes the course of both of your lives. Satsuki's kamui goes by Junketsu, or purity, a regal piece of military garb that her father once called her wedding dress. Junketsu's complement is Ryuko's kamui, Senketsu, or fresh blood, which is styled like a seifuku sailor uniform. Oh yeah, and Ryuko's family surname, Matoi, literally means tangle. You know, like a tangle of red thread. But the name Senketsu is even more on the nose. Not just because Ryuko's uniform requires blood to activate, but also for its implicit suggestion that the red thread of fate owes its color to blood sacrifice.
来い、純血。この血が私と貴様の永遠のちぎり、迷惑の赤い糸だ。
As far as anime antagonists go, Kiryuin Satsuki is one of the all-time greats. It's not even up for debate at this point. She is confident, strong, regal, totally self-assured, and utterly ruthless in pursuit of her goals. Backed by the unquestioning obedience of the school staff and almost all of its students, Satsuki is the cult of the strong, fascist leader. When we first meet Satsuki, we see her deliver Orwellian doublespeak straight out of 1984.
恐怖こそ自由、君臨こそ解放、矛盾こそ真理。それがこの世界の真実だ。服を着た豚ども、その真実に屈服せよ。
From her perch atop the hierarchy of Honnoji Academy, she rules with a dictatorial disposition and makes declarations drawn from ancient Chinese proverbs to justify her ambitions.
円弱伊豆君と広告の志を知らんや。貴様が 何をやろうとそれは精進の浅知恵だ。
This famous adage was originally uttered by the legendary Chinese warlord, Chen Sheng. Growing up in a small village in the 3rd century BC, he vowed to one day become the most powerful general in China. When the villagers mocked the young Sheng for his delusions of grandeur, he replied, "Little sparrows cannot understand the ambition of a grand swan." Chen Sheng would go on to become a high-ranking commander in ancient China's Qin dynasty, which became the first ruling family of Imperial China, uniting the country under the iron grip of their military might. But Chen Sheng's ambition burned so strongly, he also became the first commander to rebel against his patrons, and he was put to death for his treason. Japanese history buffs might have also noticed something familiar about Honnoji Academy in Kill la Kill. This setting is a nod to the most famous warlord of feudal Japan's Sengoku Jidai, or Era of Warring States, a 200-year-long period of bloody and destructive civil war. In the show, both the name and appearance of Satsuki's headquarters, Honnoji, are almost identical to the real-life Honnoji Temple, the base of operations of the legendary 17th century daimyo, Oda Nobunaga. Like Chen Sheng, Nobunaga was another brutal figure who attempted to unify his country through bloodshed and military might. It was at Honnoji Temple that Nobunaga planned his final invasion of Western Japan, and it was at Honnoji that he was betrayed by his most loyal retainer, Akechi Mitsuhide. This act of betrayal helped bring an end to the Sengoku period, and with it, Nobunaga's ambition. The first half of Kill la Kill's narrative nods at this history, as Satsuki plans her conquest of the schools of Western Japan, only to both betray and be betrayed during her moment of greatest triumph. And the authoritarianism that fuels this conflict is built into every brick and cobblestone of Honno City. The elite nobility rule the school and live in luxury at the top of the city, while the hoi polloi and lower classes live in the ramshackle slums at the bottom. It's an intensely hierarchical system, where a student's position at Honnoji Academy is directly reflected by the living quarters their family gets assigned. We even get to see firsthand how this arrangement breeds intense conformity and loyalty when Ryuko's surrogate family gets promoted to live in the upper-class districts. Honno City is a straight-up transposition of the old Pyramid of Capitalism propaganda poster. Once more for the folks in the back, this show is not trying to be subtle. And lording over it all is a lone figure, Kiryuin Satsuki, the embodiment of the intoxicating power of authoritarianism. We might like to think that if we were in Ryuko's shoes, we'd also hate Satsuki and be resolved to tear down the system she created. And yet, Satsuki is also shown to be possessed of such singular strength and resolve that we can't help but admire her. During Satsuki's betrayal, we learn the true motive behind her ambitions of conquest. She seeks to unify Japan in order to crush the evil Revox Corporation owned by her mother, Ragyu Kiryuin, the power behind the throne and true ruler of Honnoji Academy. And Ragyu isn't just Satsuki's mother. She's also Ryuko's mother. These rivals are also siblings, bound by the red thread of fate and tangled up in a bloody family drama. Satsuki's insurrection also sparks the reveal of the true antagonist of Kill la Kill, demonic parasites from outer space who have assumed the form of power-enhancing life fibers. Now, if you're already familiar with the Gainax and Trigger catalog, then you may have seen this twist coming. An alien menace from beyond the stars arrives to crush humanity and reshape it in its image, only to be met by plucky heroes who overcome impossible odds with the power of friendship, determination, and up until this point in Kill la Kill, we were viewing clothes entirely through their socio-historical implications. But from this point forward, things get downright biblical.
So, 服とは罪。人は禁断の知恵の実を食べたとき、その裸体を恥じ、イチジクの葉で秘書を覆った。人間は人間としての意志を持ったときから、罪という名の衣を身にまとうこと ことを定めとしたのだ。
And the Lord God called unto Adam and said unto him, Where art thou? And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, Who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat?
In Abrahamic religious lore, humanity came of age by eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge, thus becoming aware of our nakedness. In shame at our naked bodies, we created clothes for ourselves. This was our original sin, the transgression that caused God to cast us out of paradise, dooming us to wander the earth in suffering. We learn that Satsuki's mother Ragyo is using her Revox Corporation to propagate the parasitic alien life fibers. And if her plan succeeds, the entire world will be covered in clothing. Parasitic, demonic, alien clothing. Humanity did not create clothes. Clothes created humanity by choosing our ancestors as a host for their parasites, and then forcing us to evolve to rely on clothing for warmth and protection.
服を着た生物が人間になったんだ。生命繊維が類人猿の一種族であったホモ・サピエンスをここまで進化させた。そう、我々人類が服に選ばれたんだよ。
Life fibers in Kill La Kill are a mirror to Evangelion's human instrumentality project. Call it a clothstrumentality. The ultimate aim of both Gendo and Ragyu is to transform all of existence into a vast wasteland of sameness and conformity. It is an absolute terror field in which there is no possibility of individual self-expression or personal freedom, and no chance of escape. And it is the logical conclusion of the death cult that is fascism. Clothing, and the life fibers that make them up, are sin made manifest, inflicted on a suffering humanity. Putting on clothes forces us into roles, into genders and classes, in-groups and out-groups. They confuse us and alienate us from our essential humanity. They are tyranny itself. Despite the intense debate around supposed biological differences between the sexes, humans are one of the least sexually dimorphic species on Earth. As in, there are fewer physical differences between male and female humans than almost any other animal you can name. And you really only need to look at us naked to understand this. Clothing in Kill La Kill doesn't just stand for literal physical articles of clothing. Clothing represents an entire social order, a system of control and oppression that perverts our values. But if clothing is our original sin, then Satsuki and Ryuko are Christ figures, come to ring in the New Testament and deliver us from evil. Which brings us, at long last, to what is perhaps the central and defining theme of Kill La Kill. This is the big one, and the source of so much of the controversy around Kill La Kill. The show is packed to the brim with TNA, chiseled naked bodies, and overtly erotic cinematography. And yet the careful viewer can't help but feel that there's something else going on here. Because when you get down to it and unravel this final thematic thread, you'll understand that this show has so much more to offer than just cheap fan service. Ryuko and Satsuki's Kamui battle outfits are skimpy, titillating, and leave absolutely nothing to the imagination, making the wearers seem somehow more naked than if they were wearing no clothes at all. These Kamui are also powered by and feed on the wearer's blood. In order to activate their latent power, Ryuko and Satsuki must sacrifice a little of their own blood in order to initiate their own magical girl transformation sequence. In one sense, this is a straightforward use of puberty imagery. Menstruation and blood are culturally universal signifiers that a woman has become an adult and come of age. But Kill La Kill doesn't just present this symbolism in a vacuum. It actively appropriates the tropes of shonen anime and manga to spin its own unique perspective on human sexuality.
露出狂？くだらん！この姿はカムイが最も力を震える姿。 それを俗な価値基準で恥じるなど、まさに己の小ささの証明。この桐生に立つき、我が野望成就のためならば天下に乳房を晒そうと恥もなければひるみもない。我が行動に一点の曇りなし。
Sex is power. When Ryuko first unlocks the power of her Kamui Senketsu, she is filled with embarrassment about exposing herself. And she feels no small degree of shame at the hordes of men ogling her nearly naked body. Even the cinematography itself is playing along, leering at her alongside the viewer. But when Ryuko finally overcomes her self-doubt, we see a complete reversal of this dynamic. Her posture changes, erasing every hint of shame or hesitation. She is in complete command. The camera angles change as well, shifting from a leering, softcore hentai perspective to the kind of action hero pose you'd see in a popular shonen anime. And her rival Satsuki takes this sentiment and cranks the volume all the way up. She fully embraces her Kamui Junketsu, viewing it as just another tool she can exploit along the path of conquest. Satsuki wields Junketsu with such confidence that no one, not the staff of Honoji Academy, nor her Shiteno Elite Four, no one, dares to so much as glance her way without showing proper respect and deference. And it's Satsuki's poise and self-assuredness that ultimately motivates Ryuko to accept the Kamui as part of herself, to embrace and love her body, regardless of what anyone else thinks of her or how they perceive her. Ryuko must abandon shame and irony and every other form of self-hatred thrust upon us by an oppressive world. In this way, Kill la Kill's plot becomes an allegory about how we must learn to unconditionally love our bodies and ourselves. Now, the argument is often made that because these fictional characters have been drawn and designed by a staff of mostly male animators, there's no way to interpret Kill la Kill as anything more than pure fan service, meant to thrill and titillate, but not much else. It reminds me of similar criticism of the 2009 video game Bayonetta. Because the titular character is so sexual and sexualized, and because the game was made by a staff of mostly male creators, even though the protagonists were designed by a woman, critics argued that it's impossible for the game to have anything positive to say about female representation and empowerment. And following this line of argument, you'll often get some weird, regressive, and quasi-bigoted arguments about the culture and character of Japan. But that criticism about Bayonetta is worth returning to and chewing on for a bit, because it's also the key to deciphering the riddle of Kill la Kill. Towards the climax, Satsuki and Ryuko's ragtag resistance mounts its desperate last stand against Ragyu and the forces of Revox. In this moment, it's at last made clear that their willingness to go naked, fully embracing their own unadorned sexuality and selves, is what gives them the strength to fight for the future and overcome all obstacles.
何？私は人でもなければ服でもない、どっちつかずの存在だ。だけど今はこの体にしてくれたことに感謝してるぜ。私だけにはその絶対服従も効かないみたいだからな。
In the final fight sequence, as Ryuko blasts off into space to challenge her mother Ragyu, she takes up the combined uniforms of Satsuki, the Elite Four, and the rest of her friends and family. When Kill la Kill began, all of these characters were isolated and alone, divided up and pitted against each other by Ragyu and Satsuki's brutal fascist hierarchy. But now, in the end, the entire cast understands that they must unite and go naked in order to win this fight. They must shed their clothes, their material wealth and station in life, and join their bodies together in solidarity as nearly naked apes. It's all too easy to feel weighed down by the alienation and isolation that is inherent to the human condition. Ryuko began Kill la Kill as a solitary loner with no close friends or familial ties, struggling to fit in and find her own sense of place. But by the end, she learns to trust and accept those around her, to place her faith and love in her friends, and even her bitter rivals. This kind of self-actualization is hard, and it takes a great deal of struggle, pain, and suffering to get there. but reaching out to form these genuine connections with other people is our only hope as we fight for a better future. Because as the story of Matoi Ryuko and Kiryuin Satsuki shows, human sexuality is the ultimate battleground in the struggle for individual expression and the fight for freedom. Throughout the 20th and 21st century, fascist and authoritarian movements have been driven by a singular obsession with human sexuality. So-called traditional sexuality, the kind that produces children, is elevated, while deviant sexual practices are condemned and outlawed. It's why Nazi Germany, following in America's footsteps, made homosexuality punishable by death and instituted forced sterilization for undesirables, while also making reproduction mandatory for those with so-called Aryan genetic qualities. It's why Russia under Putin has embarked on a wide-ranging crackdown on homosexuality in the name of protecting traditional marriage. And it's why the digital fascist movements of the 21st century all betray a similar obsession with sex and reproduction. The characters Satsuki and Ryuko present us with two different liberation narratives about how we can find the strength to navigate this battlefield and rebel against the unjust authorities that dominate our world. Satsuki is the incrementalist, working within the system to assert her power and impose her will on others. With the might of Honnoji Academy at her command, she aims to create an indomitable order that can be used to finally free the world. Ryuko is the troublemaker, the anarchist, the rabble-rouser who comes to tear down the whole rotten edifice. With her burning and righteous determination, she can gather a crew of like-minded allies and summon the strength to overcome any obstacle. This dichotomy between Satsuki and Ryuko presents the audience with two competing approaches when it comes to rebellion against an unjust society. But we also see how first, before the revolution begins, we must overcome our own alienation and isolation. Ryuko is always lonely, but never isolated. She doesn't have any money or any family to rely on, which leaves her feeling disconnected from her peers. It's her willingness to make new friends and join Mako's family that ultimately helps break her out of her shell. Satsuki is never lonely, but always isolated. High up in the tower of Honnoji Academy, she is waited on hand and foot by servants and commands a rotating cast of underlings who bow and scrape at her every word. But in her heart, she is still totally and utterly alone. It is only by casting off the trappings of authority, by stepping outside of her fortress of solitude, that Satsuki is able to form a genuine human connection with her long-lost sister, Ryuko. This dichotomy is critical because we see that, in the end, neither of these competing approaches, the anarchist versus the incrementalist, is enough on its own. It's only by putting aside petty differences and joining hands in pursuit of a bigger goal that we can find our true selves and win the future.
わけわかんない連中に守られてるのはお前も同じか。
おお。どうやらそのようだな。私はラ行に勝つためには全ての人間を私の駒にして動かさなければならない。そう思っていた。お前のこともそうだ。だがそれは大きな間違いだった。結局私もラ行と同じやり方をとっていたのだ。それでは勝てないのは当然だ。一番愚かだったのは私だ。
さつきちゃん。
今わかった。世界は一枚の布ではない。なんだかよくわからないものに溢れているから、この世界は美しい。その世界を守るため、一緒に戦ってくれ、龍子。Kill la Kill is so much more than just another fetishistic and nostalgic anime about high schoolers. If you're watching this right now, and you're under the age of 40, know that Kill la Kill is speaking directly to you. You are in the prime of your life, and you are more than capable of changing the world if you choose to. The world hasn't weighed you down yet, not as much as you think. You can still summon up your optimism, shed your inhibitions, and overturn the status quo. And it's this realization that adds a powerful weight to so much of the narrative and dialogue of Kill la Kill. Moments that would otherwise be seen as just silly plot exposition take on a profound new gravity when viewed through this lens.
人間は生まれてから20年も服を着ると服への抵抗感が全くなくなる。そうなる前の10代後半の学生を核にして私を倒す。
Kill la Kill is a wild battle cry for freedom, a plea to fight against unjust authority and all forms of self-hatred and self-denial. So, it's time to push back against my own self-imposed limitations. The personal is always political, y'all, which means it's time to get confessional.
X gon' give it to you. Fuck, wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you. Knock, knock, open up the door, it's real.
Speaking in purely gender-binary terms, on the genetic level, men have XY chromosomes and women have XX chromosomes. I have an extra X chromosome, which, according to some definitions, makes me intersex. My body is awkward, thin, and gangly, and feminine in stature. My waist and shoulders are narrow, my lips are full, and my face is angular and androgynous. I've never grown hair anywhere on my torso, and I only need to shave my patchy facial hair about once a week. There are lots of different labels for what I've experienced, but I've always shied away from using medical or psychological terminology to describe my life in this way. I don't see my identity as some kind of weakness or disordered state of being. On the contrary, I now see it as one of my greatest strengths. But I didn't always feel this way. As I started going through puberty, I would lie awake at nights, hating this wretched shell, cursing the pure happenstance that made me a man instead of a woman. I hated how I looked, and I felt nothing but self-loathing about how different I was from the other boys my age and all the bullying that came my way. I felt like I was damned to be permanently uncomfortable in my own skin. More than once, I thought about killing myself, and more than once, I almost followed through. But it was during this time that I discovered a lifeline that literally saved my life. Magical Girl anime. From beautiful warriors in sailor suits banishing dark demons, to revolutionary girls smashing an oppressive and unjust patriarchy. But it was the transformation sequences that really spoke to me. The glittering pastels, the starbursts, the sweeping shots of bodies in motion, morphing and changing, assuming new shapes and costumes. In other words, becoming what they were meant to be. It was a reminder that I wasn't going to be stuck this way forever. I also could change, and I could someday be free to be the kind of person I knew I was meant to be. Here was something I could hold on to that made me feel validated and just a little bit more whole and complete. Of course, this is all much easier said than done. Fast forward a decade from high school to my mid-20s, and I was still confused, depressed, alienated, and struggling with how to reconcile my internal emotions with how the world expected me to outwardly behave. And it was during this very dark and confusing time in my life that I first saw Kill la Kill. And maybe it was just because of my obsessive love of magical girl anime that I was already primed to be receptive, but this show's message really struck me like a bolt out of the blue. Here, at long last, was the answer I had been searching for. I needed to go naked. Never be afraid of self-expression. Lose your inhibitions, grow out your hair, wear makeup, do drugs, fall in love, become who you were meant to be, whatever that is and whatever that looks like. And most importantly, connect with like-minded people who can share in your journey and you in theirs. So why does my personal story matter? Because all of us, the freaks, the weirdos and lesser-thans, who weren't invited to the cool kids table, who aren't part of any scene, who never get to call the shots. We're going to win this fight.
だが同時に私たちは人であり服であり全てであり人は服にはならねえ人は人服は服だ何をわけのわからないことを言っているそれが私たちってことだよ
And we're going to win because of who we are, not in spite of it. And that is the ultimate meaning and message of Kill la Kill. You cannot control what other people think of you, but you should never feel ashamed by it. Indeed, free expression in the face of social pressure is your greatest source of strength. We need Kill la Kill now more than ever. A dark cloud has descended over the world. Fascism is ascendant. Will we survive this coming age of darkness? Only if we take Kill la Kill's lessons to heart. Fashion is a tool of fascism, but it is also one of its most powerful antidotes. So the next time you find yourself struggling with the weight of the world, unable to find a way through, go naked. Strip away all of your old beliefs and habits and preconceptions, and approach your dilemma with a fresh and open mind. Step outside of your own head and use your emotions and empathy instead of your rational brain. Take on a new role, wear a new outfit, find a new mode of presentation. You might find that this new perspective better serves you and gets you closer to the kind of life you want to lead. You just might discover the answer you were looking for. The hour is getting late. We're running out of time, and we don't have many options left. Be yourself, because it's the only way we're going to survive. Go naked. Thank you so much for watching. I know this one took a while, but I hope you enjoyed it. I might be more proud of this video than anything else I've ever created for this channel. So to everyone who watches, shares, and discusses my videos, thank you. I couldn't do this without you. There's more on the way. Not quite as long as this one was, so hopefully I'll get them out a bit quicker. I now have a general viewer inbox, askdreaminginneon@gmail.com. So send me your questions, comments, existential crises. I'm all ears. It's also official now. I'm launching a Patreon crowdfunding page. I'll make a proper announcement video at some point, but here's what it comes down to. I want to make videos like these full-time, but I need a certain monetary baseline to do it. So if you've enjoyed what I've made so far and want to see more, please consider making a monthly pledge. If half of everyone who watches this video pledges $1, I'll have everything I need to deliver content like this on the regular. Thanks again. See you next time.